everybody listening to this, if you ever have felt tempted or thought like, well, maybe there is extra biblical stuff out there, these Gnostic gospels, maybe they have the truth, read them.
Mm.
Just read them at some point. They are weird, okay? And I'm not just saying like, okay, well, because they're weird, they're invalid. But it's stuff like...
Yeah, we want to hear the weird things.
Oh, yeah.
Can you give us some
stories?
highlight reel
I'll
of the
give you a
weird
couple.
stuff?
So there's the secret book of John. It's called the Apocryphon of John. And again, a lot of these are pseudonymic. They're pseudonyms.
Using like a different name.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Pseudepigrapha. That's what they call them. So they're written by like Adam, the Gospel of Adam, Gospel of Enoch, the Gospel of Judas, the Gospel of Thomas. In the Apocryphon of John, it's kind of like the secret knowledge of John. And it's like, how much do we need to get into here? It's like everything I look at, it's almost like you look a little bit further and like, maybe we need to talk about this. Maybe we need to talk about this. But essentially, this whole idea of a Gnostic gospel, gnosis comes from the Greek word gnosis, which means to know. And it's like secret knowledge of something. And so like when you hear the word prognosticate, it's like Gnostic is in there, like to say something beforehand, to know beforehand. So gnosis then, or this Gnostic understanding is that Jesus said these things, but he didn't talk about all of it because you weren't ready for it yet. And so the Gnostic viewpoint is that there are levels of spirituality. And most people are on one, but man, you can get into two. And if you can get into three, you're almost like God like yourself.
And are they saying to get to those levels?
Yeah,
you read these other...
Oh, yeah. If you
books?
read this stuff, you will get more inside knowledge.
And that sort of has echoes of like what we see today with some spirituality that like you can transcend, like you can get to a higher level and like unlock new learning.
Yes. Click here and enter your credit card information and you can get...
Subscribe and save.
Yep. Yes, exactly. So, I mean, that's kind of the way it was in the ancient world, was like these cults sprang up, and it was the opposite. It's funny because the Gnostic cults were almost the inversion of what we see with the Christian communities. That everything we think in terms of our conspiracy theories about the Christian communities getting power is exactly the Gnostics that were doing that. And so they were selling this like the image of like, we know more than you do. And if you want to be like one of us, you got to be like one of us. You got to come and join us. And so they gained power through this. And then the way they did it in the Apocryphon of John, they talk about how you have to understand that God is so much like God and we are so like we are. There's no way the two could ever have touched. And so God didn't create the world. God, because he is unknowable, unsearchable, unseeable, you can't even say the word God. It's just like you have no concept of what that is. Because of that, because he's so life-giving and eternal, he has these things that emanate out from him. And one of the things that emanates out from him is called Sophia, which means wisdom. Sophia had a bunch of things that emanated out from her, and one of them was called Yaldabaoth. And Yaldabaoth was this kind of petulant, ignorant, arrogant son. Like picture a 7-year-old with a big lollipop in his hand and, like the little Tamagotchi
I already
thing
don't like
or whatever. Like what would be a good, like he's Pokemon dude, he's just like, get out of my way, I'm trying to find my Pokemon.
Maybe Team Rocket on that one. Yeah, those guys are jerks. we don't like them.
By the way, I've never heard any of this before. This is fascinating.
It's fascinating stuff. So the whole idea is that if God is out there and unreachable and unknowable, so much God that we can't even know what he's like, he has these things that emanate out from him called demiurges. And so as these things progress out, that explains why we have the world, because God couldn't have touched it and created it because the world's messed up. We're sarcos, we're flesh. So these demiurges came out, and Yaldabaoth actually created the world, and he did it with his mother's magic. Okay, and he didn't really understand it all, and that's why everything's messed up. That's why things fall apart. That's why there's all kinds of horrible things that go on. And then he had these archons that come out of him that like are almost like demons and angels, and they inhabit the world. So point being, if you know that, then you can start ascending through these levels of understanding what the truth is. So
it seems like that's really distracting from what the Bible is really showing is clearly known.
Man, if you want to read the Gnostic Gospels, go for it. But, in like the Gospel of Thomas, if you're a woman, you're in bad shape, because according to the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus said that you have to become a man in order to enter the kingdom of heaven. And it's like, well, that's a problem. What are we going to do with that? When you read through these different Gospels, the Gospel of Judas, Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Enoch, Gospel of Adam, you have all these very different and controversial teachings that first of all, don't sound anything like Jesus. They're not written by an eyewitness. They're from the 2nd to 4th centuries. They're after they've already established, like the first 50 to 100 after Jesus, from 50 AD to 100 AD. These things were all written. We're all kind of settled on those things. And then these other things just pop up. So anybody trying to tell you in a YouTube video that the Gnostic Gospels are the real truth and that this council or that council was trying to weed them out, well, of course they were trying to weed them out.
Right. What I'm hearing is they didn't meet that criteria.
Right.
There's a reason they didn't get included, and it's because they were not legit.
Yeah.
They weren't even close enough to Jesus, and then also they were saying things that were inconsistent. Because it sounds like there's tons of copies of these other books that are saying one thing about who Jesus was, what he taught, and though they're from almost these different angles, they're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, what people could notice as a red flag is this is suddenly inconsistent.
Yeah.
That's probably a flag.
They also weren't written by the people that they're claiming to be written by, right?
Yeah.
Like Gospel of Barnabas, not written by Barnabas.
Was that clear?
Dude, Gospel of Barnabas, talk about it.
I don't know anything about it.
Oh my gosh.
I just know it was written by Barnabas.
The Gospel of Barnabas isn't even in the original. So what the Gospel of Barnabas is a super big fake. Okay. They've taken a piece of papyrus that you can actually date from ancient Near East, but then they wrote over it. I think it was like an Italian or Spanish or something like that.
Oh, this is like a very late.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And they've even quoted from Dante's Inferno.
Oh, it was a very, very late.
When was Dante's Inferno written?
I'll look
sure
it
was
up.
like
It's gotta be
13th century or something like that. Yeah. So people are reading this stuff and they're like, wow, maybe I thought all this stuff wrong all along. And it's you are being taken for a ride, like big time. So it's just funny that as I think back in the 80s and 90s, as people thought, man, when we have the World Wide Web, when we have the internet, we're finally going to have a clearinghouse of real information. And what it's done is it's proliferated all these wacko theories.
Yeah, 14th century for Dante's Inferno.
So, I mean, think about that. You're quoting from something that, I mean, the person that writing this wasn't even too with it to even figure that out.
Yeah. Right. And all it takes is a little digging into some of that timeline and some of that information.
Now, the thing is, I think, again, when we talk about conspiracy, and we're going to move on to other things, but I think, say my last thing about these YouTube conspiracy theories, a lot of them are fueled from people that are very, very intelligent. So like Bill Maher, I think Bill Maher, I don't agree with everything Bill Maher says, and I don't like his crassness or his language, but I do appreciate how when he believes something or he thinks something or he's done research on something, he'll say it in a very straightforward way. He'll just kind of like say it as it is. And he does it in a way that's very convincing. And so I agree with a lot of the things he says, except when he comes to the whole Jesus idea. He made a movie called Religulous. He's got a show, right? What is it?
I think it's called Bill Maher.
It's just called Bill Maher. Okay. So I've heard him over and over again kind of quote how Jesus and the whole story of Jesus was actually lifted from previous traditions. The like Isis, Horus, and Seb, that they had, Horus was born on the 25th of December from a virgin birth, that the cult of Mithras, he's another virgin birth, that there's probably about 12 different examples of how Jesus and the whole Jesus story was borrowed from all these other things. And again, that's just not true. All of those stories actually postdate Christianity, and actually Christianity influenced the way they are. So everybody knows Isis, Horus, and Seb, right?
Do we? Do we know?
You want to hear it?
Yes, those sound like my neighbor's dogs. I'm pretty sure they named their dogs.
That's true. That's a really good point.
Sound like some of the other Pokemon that I don't know about.
Please keep going. Exactly. So it's Egyptian. You got Isis and Osiris, right? And they're a couple, and they're enjoying life together. They got the house, the kids, all that kind of stuff. It's awesome. So Osiris has this brother who's not too happy with him. His name is Set. And Set, I don't know, he's supposed to be gods. Like, are they dumb? So Set's like, yeah, I made this coffin, and I made it out of lead. You should try it out. So he gets in it, seals it shut, throws it in the water. Guy dies, so Set kills his brother. Isis isn't happy
if you're
with
that gullible, maybe
I
you
got this
deserve to
coffin.
go into the coffin. I don't know.
But you are a god. Okay. So he dies, and long story short, he gets dismembered. They take parts of him and like cast them all throughout the universe. I think it's 12 or 14 parts or whatever. And so Isis is really sad, really upset. And she just weeps and goes throughout the whole universe and collects different parts of his body. And she puts them all together, but it's missing one part. Okay. And this is where the PG rating comes in. If you have any kids in the room, small animals, you might want to leave the room. So there's a critical part that's essential for having grandchildren someday that is missing.
Yep.
So
from his body.
From his body.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So
No, somewhere else.
we need to move on.
Yeah.
The point here, though, is that she then invokes some sort of magic. I can't remember who she asks. She asks somebody to help complete the body so that she can have a baby. Okay. Now, he is still dead, but his death now becomes part of the reason why we go through winter. And then he rises in the spring, so it kind of is an etiological myth for why we have spring and summer, or spring and fall, or winter. Summer, winter, spring, and fall. We have seasons. Okay. So anyhow, that is what Bill Maher points to in saying Jesus borrowed from Osiris and Isis in the virgin birth.
Virgin birth is the connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that?
I don't
does that
follow
make
it.
Any sense?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. When you hear, Jesus, he borrowed from this and this and this and this and this, and he goes through rapid fire, so you don't have time to check anything out. If you actually checked it out, there's no connection there. And then on top of that, he'll say, well, December 25th, and apparently, the Isis and Osiris thing is linked to December 25th. The Bible never says December 25th.
Right.
It's just something that the church added on later just to kind of dovetail with Saturnalia, and that's fine. But these loose connections that are built, like he'll say that Mithras, it's a Roman cult. Mithras, Cybele, all these different cults, like pagan cults. It talks about how Mithras, he'll say that, Mithras was born of a virgin. No, Mithras was born out of a rock. So it's like there's no connection here. No, someone didn't sit down and go, let me pull my pagan resources together and sculpt Jesus. Like we've seen how that didn't happen to begin with. But when you actually look at the connections, there are none. Or they post-date.